Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a wild one for you. We're going to talk about a car that was born for a race series that never even happened, and somehow went on to become a tech marvel, a total money pit, and an automotive outlaw. Yeah, it's a crazy story. So, how does that even happen? Let's get right into the bizarre, paradoxical story of the Porsche 959. This is a car that was, at the exact same time, a massive, massive success and a complete and utter failure. All right, so to really get the 959, you have to know where it came from. And believe it or not, it wasn't born for some fancy racetrack. Nope. Its whole reason for being was to prove that the good old Porsche 911 wasn't over the hill yet. It was the early 80s, and Porsche basically needed a science experiment on wheels to figure out what was next. And their big idea? Oh, it was ambitious, all right. They decided to build a car for the legendary and, let's be honest, absolutely insane Group B rally series. If you don't know Group B, just picture the Wild West of off-road racing. The rulebook was basically thrown out the window, and what you got were these fire-breathing monsters on dirt roads. But here's where the story takes a hard left turn. Just as Porsche is putting the finishing touches on this incredible machine, the entire Group B series gets canceled. Just gone. Why? It was just too dangerous. So now Porsche has this amazing rally car with no rally to race in. What do? Well, if you're Porsche, you pivot brilliantly. You take your high-tech wonder and enter it into the most brutal off-road race in the world, the Paris-Dakar Rally. And well, it didn't just compete. It absolutely crushed it. Okay, so you've got this world-conquering rally car, but its main purpose just evaporated. So Porsche decides, all right, let's sell it to the public. And the car they unleashed on the road, well, it was something else. It was like a machine that had time-traveled from the future. I mean, look at that number, 197 miles per hour. In 1986, that was unheard of. It made it the fastest production car on the planet. But honestly, the top speed isn't even the most impressive part. It's how it did it. The technology underneath, that's the real magic here. And this is what I'm talking about. Just look at this list of tech. It's mind-boggling for the 80s. You've got sequential turbos to get rid of that dreaded turbo lag. You've got a ridiculously smart all-wheel drive system that didn't just react to slipping tires, it could actually predict it and move power around. It even had the first ever tire pressure monitor. Seriously, this is stuff that didn't become standard on supercars for like another 20 years. But all that amazing futuristic tech, it came with a price tag. A really, really big one. And this is where the story shifts. The 959 as a work of engineering genius slams head-on into the 959 as a complete and total business nightmare. Yeah, just look at these numbers for a second. The list price, what customers paid, was already a fortune in 1987. But get this, it cost Porsche more than double that to actually build one. They were losing a staggering amount of money on every single car that rolled off the line.
Let's put that in visual terms. For every car they sold, Porsche basically handed the new owner the keys and a check for about $275,000. It was no exaggeration, a financial catastrophe.
So when you're losing that much money, you have to make some tough calls. And Porsche made a huge one, a decision that would become legendary. As Porsche expert Bruce Canepa puts it, the company just couldn't stomach the cost of bringing the 959 to the US market. And that one business decision, it's what sealed the 959's fate as an icon. By saying no to America, Porsche accidentally turned the 959 into forbidden fruit, the ultimate you can't have this car. And that, of course, created a massive headache for some very rich, very determined American car fans. So why was it illegal in the US? For a long time, this kind of rumor floated around, this big, dramatic story. And while the myth is pretty cool, the real reason is, well, it's a lot simpler. The story you always hear goes something like this. The big, bad US government demanded that Porsche crash test 4 of these priceless supercars. And Porsche, proud and defiant, said no way. It's this great tale of a cool car company standing up to the man. But the reality? It wasn't nearly that dramatic. The truth is, it had nothing to do with defiance and everything to do with money. It was just too expensive. Porsche was already losing a fortune on each 959. Spending millions more to engineer it just for US safety and emissions rules, it was a non-starter. a purely economic decision. This illegal status led to some truly weird situations. You had guys like Bill Gates who actually bought a 959, but the US government wouldn't let him drive it. It was literally impounded at a port for over a decade. This mess eventually led him and other enthusiasts to actually lobby the government, and they succeeded. They got a law passed, the show and display law, that basically changed car import rules in America forever, all because of this one car. Okay, so that brings us to the 959's final and maybe most important legacy. How did all these failures, the financial disaster, the legal battles, actually end up paving the way for Porsche's future success? How did it become the ultimate teacher? Road and Track magazine put it perfectly, and I love this comparison. They said the 959 was a hammer, a technological brute force tool that could conquer anything you threw at it. But maybe it was a little numb. It lacked a bit of soul. The car that came later, the Carrera GT, that was a knife. Sharp, precise, all about driver feel. Porsche learned a huge lesson. A supercar can't just be a science project. It has to connect with you on an emotional level. And when you look at it that way, you can see the 959's DNA in pretty much every Porsche that came after it. That incredible all-wheel drive system, it became the foundation for the 911 Carrera 4. The turbo tech, it's been refined and perfected for decades. But the biggest lessons were the ones it taught Porsche about the business. Lesson 1, your halo car has to actually make money. And lesson 2, technology is great, but it has to serve one purpose, making the driver's heart pound. Which kind of leaves us with this one big question, right? Maybe the 959's greatest legacy wasn't the car itself, but what it taught Porsche to build next. It really was an unintended masterpiece, a spectacular failure that somehow gave Porsche all the tools it needed for decades of incredible and this time profitable success.